Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. As a member of OPEC, Nigeria has over time benefited from sharp rises in oil prices on the back of every crisis in the Middle East. The Gulf War oil windfall of the Babangida regime still comes to mind. Recently, there was also a considerable spike in oil prices as a result of tensions owing to the U.S.-Iran conflict over the assassination of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. The questions continue to be asked as to how diligently or effectively different administrations in Nigeria have plowed back or reinvested these funds for the benefit of the people, not forgetting the maintenance and development of infrastructure. For more expert analysis of this situation and other issues, we are now being joined by Dr. Diran Fawibe, a prominent oil and gas expert and administrator and Chief Executive Officer, International Energy Services. Welcome to the program, Dr. Fawibe.
Thank you.
And Happy New Year. First time you've been here this year.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I mean, you had the introduction,
Yes,
the
I did.
spike in oil prices and the spot price of crude following the issue between the United States and Iran. Of what benefit is that to us? And is it something we should be happy about that, the spot price of crude has gone up?
Well, we shouldn't take joy in the misfortune of other people. But unfortunately, in life, things are never the same. You cannot be looking at what is convenient for other people. But the fact of the case now is that, there was a spike in the price of oil. I agree that it was for a short period. People thought that the crisis between Iran and U.S. would be long-lasting. But the two combatants, quickly checked themselves, because of certain events that happened around that time. You knew about the shutting down of the airline, Ukraine airline, and when you lost about 176 people, and Iran admitted that the plane was actually shot, by the Iranian military. Then it was dangerous, over the killing of the army general. So, and I think U.S. took a cue from that, and then relaxed. More so when the firing of missiles into the bases of U.S. did not kill anybody. So here we are, the spike expected, in the price of oil, which could be long-lasting, that it happened in the past, did not actually happen. But that's not to say that there was not a spike in the price of oil, because at the time the crisis happened, the price of oil was going down to about $60 per barrel. And as you know, our budget was predicated on $57 per barrel. So in effect, we still have some gains, as a result of this crisis. Only recently we are having problems about Libyan oil, being disrupted, because there was a civil war in Libya, and which resulted in a serious decline in the production of Libya. Libya was doing about 1.2 million barrels per day. But currently, the information has it that they are down to about under 100,000 barrels per day. Suddenly, when that happened, there will be an inflow, disruption of flow of oil in the market, which of course can result in a price of oil. But coming back to your question, there is no doubt that Nigerian Treasury will benefit from this crisis. It has always been like that whenever there's any political crisis, especially in oil-producing countries, either in the Middle East or in Latin America, like Venezuela and Ecuador and so on. But you also have to remember that Nigeria is struggling presently with revenue. And that's why the government wanted to take, they were having budget deficit, substantial budget deficit. And when you have this type of gains, obviously it will show up, the revenue you have to be able to reduce, albeit, the budget deficit. Now, we tend to have what we call excess crude oil account, from which we tend to fund some projects. Now, if the price of the benchmark for the budget was $57 per barrel, and I agree that we are doing about $65 per barrel on average, then we have some gains there. So that will help us. We'll put the excess into the excess crude account, and which we could actually use to finance or fund certain projects, which I expect should be infrastructure, because what is on the card today, or the major problem we have today, which has been emphasized all around, is the issue of infrastructure. It featured prominently in the UK African Summit in London, and for which UK was determined to assist Nigeria in a way. But what we should expect from government is to be able to say at the end of the day, we have been able to benefit from this crisis to the tune of this. So if ever that is not done, we expect that there has to be an improvement, in the level of infrastructure development, or whatever we are using the money to do. Good enough that this administration seems to be a little more transparent, than most administration in the past, given the caliber or personality of the president. So we expect that there has to be some transparency, in talking about, the gains of the windfall.
Thank you, sir. I want to talk to you about the security of our oil and gas installations. We had that recent tragedy in Abule Egba that cost the lives of 4 adults and 1 child, and then the mass evictions in Takwa Bay, where the authorities allege that all the residents are complicit in pipeline vandalism. Why does this problem continue to reoccur, and what measures ought to be taken to prevent it?
Well, you see, I've never seen a people, who engage in self-destruction like we are. And when you look at it fundamentally, we are not the only country that have oil. And we are not the only country that lays pipeline or infrastructure to be able to move products or energy to different parts of the country. This is what is done in every country. You lay pipelines, either to move products and so on, even crude oil in some cases. But why should it be happening in our country? And we are not the only country where we are having some level of poverty. And governments, NNPC or the energy companies seems to have been educating people about the danger. But even if ever there is no campaign, serious campaign that one will recommend, but when you see events happening today, here and there, shouldn't people who value their lives stop engaging in things that could cause and then very dearly in terms of their lives? So when you say that, what has always been the cause of this? Yes, people often attribute this to poverty, ignorance of the people who are doing it, and the people who don't appreciate the life they have, and they are not taking precautions. We knew when this problem started, over a decade ago, and the many lives that were lost in the Niger Delta. Now, people ought to have learned lessons from this. But what I think should be done now is to engage in massive campaign, to the lowest level of the society, because they are the people actually doing this. To enlighten them, to let them know what danger this type of thing has posed to their lives. And that is the only thing government can do. You cannot install police men or security agencies across all the every square meter of pipelines. But the people themselves, will have to take cognizance of the danger they are facing. The GMD of NNP said something during the visit to the point of crisis, that the people in the community, they should be more attentive. They should be more on the alert. They should know that people who are in their community, in their environment, what they are doing. Because if you just turn your face to the other side and you allow these vandals to continue to operate, vandalization doesn't happen in a day. It's actually planned. And some people around should know what is going on. So there has to be some level of intelligence, all over the place, particularly in the areas where we have pipeline, all over the place. It's not only in Lagos. I'm talking about all the other countries, all the other parts of the country, because you have the situation in the Niger Delta, and thankfully, the problem in Niger Delta seems to have subsided, thanks to the whatever policy this administration has been following. Because over the past few years, we have never witnessed the issue. We have not been hearing as much as the issue of pipeline vandalism that we used to hear in the past. Maybe we should now transport or translate this to protecting the pipelines for products.
Certainly the pipelines do need better protection, and that's what I wanted to ask you, Doctor, because do you believe the government is doing enough in terms of security for the pipelines? I know that there's only so much that the government can do, but are the government doing enough? It seems as though we have a serious technological deficit when it comes to protecting our pipelines using technology, right? For example, and I also don't think it leads to isolating or getting rid of an entire community because of an instance or two instances of pipeline vandalism, like, for example, the Takwa Bay case. But what are those dangers of pipeline vandalism? It may seem like an obvious question, but what are those dangers of pipeline vandalism that communities need to be aware about so that they know? Because I'm sure a lot of people actually also don't really know those dangers. But let's go on a quick commercial break, and when we're back, I'll bring you up on that.
Okay.
Do stay with us. You're watching The Morning Show. Welcome back to The Morning Show here on Arise News. Prominent oil and gas expert Dr. Diran Fawibe is still here with us on the program. And before we went on a break, I had asked you about the risks, or the dangers rather, of pipeline vandalism that the public should be aware about, which may seem like an obvious question, but also could be not. What are those risks?
Okay, now, before I go straight into that question, you mentioned something about the technological or technology applications, to protect pipelines. See, one of the things you can do when you want to protect pipeline, especially apply technology, is to be able to detect leakages. You could easily have leakage. When you have aging pipelines, you want to install, apply technology or deploy technological means of trying to determine whether there's a leakage, and then that is very effective, when you do that. But when it comes to deliberate act of sabotage, it becomes very problematic. So what we then need to do is to do a campaign, to stop people from doing this. And what I would probably suggest is that NNPC or whoever is responsible now have to identify all the pipeline routes, especially for products and gas around the country. And it's not difficult to do, because after all, we know where we are moving products from one place to the other. Then we now have to create a barrier. And then along the barrier, we have to show, put signs of a danger, about what is nearby. That is showing that this is a pipeline and it carries this type of danger. When you mark this place with red signs and so on, that is supposed to alert people in the neighborhood about the danger that is there if you go out there to tamper with the pipelines. But that does not stop somebody who is engaged in self-destruction, because some people will feel that, oh, I can do it and get away with it. Now, if you go and install, electric things around there, that is, of course, posing another danger. So the basic thing I would suggest is, first of all, identify all the routes, then erect barriers, maybe about some barbed wires, of certain height, to prevent easy access to the pipelines, or whereby somebody can just go there and then dig and boreholes in the pipelines, which, as it happens, it tends to cause fire incidents. It's the only one that we witness or we hear the report will be those ones where there's actually fire incident. How many pipelines have been vandalized that they siphon fuel without reporting to the public, because there was no fire incident that will actually make it newsworthy. But the basic thing is that Nigerians ought to know what the danger they are facing when they do that. And I will also suggest a campaign at the local level of everywhere where pipeline is installed. And that will mean that you go to the neighborhood. No amount of money you spend in this kind of thing will be too much. You go to the neighborhood to let them know what is here and the danger that they may be facing. Then the elders or the chiefs, community leaders in the locality, they should be brought into the equation. And then they should be given some responsibility. In Niger Delta, part of the reasons why we have been successful in curbing, pipeline vandalism is because they have contractors, who have been given assignment. People from the locality, community, who are monitoring or watching, the pipelines. But the put-up pipelines will be longer than that of crude oil, from the production feed, to the export terminal. But I guess if that they used to say, desperate problem requires desperate solutions. So we have to do a holistic approach in the way by which we can protect the pipeline. First, we have to involve the community extensively. We have to do a enlightenment program, and we have to also do create some barriers and with alerts and signs that will show to the people that, yes, in this area you are facing danger if you go out there to tamper with the pipelines.
Well, Dr. Fawibe, recently the Minister of State for Petroleum, Timi Priseva, told Nigerians that we'll just wake up one day and discover that the pump price of fuel has gone down because government is working on introducing compressed natural gas to replace premium motor spirit. And compressed natural gas, according to him, will not cost anything more than 97 naira, at the stations. Now, was the minister merely expressing a wish, or as a player in the industry, you are aware of this, if it is a policy or any steps to work towards that?
Well,
and is it feasible?
Well, I would say that it is feasible, of course. How you can deploy CNG on a large scale that you are doing for motors to gasoline is a different matter. But it's something that has to be done, has to evolve over a period of time. Yes, in the past, we tend to feel that we should be able to use gas, to fill some of the gaps that we have when it comes to usage of gasoline. Because, for example, we could easily reserve, crude oil and the processing of crude oil, either in terms of gasoline or diesel, for some other uses. Even in OPEC, in those days, we used to talk about substitution of gas for gasoline or diesel. When you take, when you do gas to liquid, for example, that is converting gas to diesel. Like I know, there's this company that Chevron, partner with, called Sasol, to develop CNG, and I think GTL, and I think they are still working on that kind of arrangement. It's with a view to taking gas, converting gas to diesel, and then instead of using crude oil, which is another fraction, of crude oil, you can actually get diesel from gas. And so the volume of oil you are not using to produce diesel, you can substitute with gas and then generate. But when it now comes to using gas, in terms of CNG, now it's a totally different concept. Some years ago, NNPC, did a pilot scheme of this, in Benin, in Benin, we used to say in those days. But that was, they even went as far as installing gas in different homes, which is equally possible. But we then have to find utilization for our gas resources. But what I think we should do, first of all, is to utilize our gas to generate power. Because that there's quite a number of power plants today that are idle because of power, of lack of gas. Some of these have been attributed to vandalism we witness on some of the gas pipelines. If we are able to manage, our gas to generate power, and also do some other things like you want to do methanol, you want to do petrochemicals, and so on, then you can then embark on using CNG on a large scale. I know there are some places today where we use gas. Instead of using diesel to generate power, you use gas, and that is okay. But when it now comes to popular use, like we want to substitute CNG for gasoline and so on a large scale, and I think the minister was just thinking about what they are planning to do for the future. It's something that will evolve over time, and then before it can become a popular thing for everybody, and you can drive your car to a particular place and say you want to take fuel. But for example, if you have a big establishment, big buildings, many buildings today, used to be powered, by CNG.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fawibe.
It's my pleasure.